The morning sun cast long shadows across the rocky terrain of Kepler 442b as Marine Sergeant Elena Vasquez adjusted her scope for the third time in 10 minutes. Something felt wrong about this patrol. The usual bird-like creatures that filled the purple sky were nowhere to be seen, and even the insect-like buzz that normally filled the air had gone silent. "Control, this is Recon 7, Elena whispered into her comm unit. "Something's not right out here. Wildlife's gone completely quiet." Static crackled back through her earpiece. "Copy that, 7. Continue patrol pattern Alpha. Command wants those mineral deposits surveyed before nightfall." Elena grimaced. Command always wanted something surveyed, mapped, or analyzed. That's what humans did best, apparently. They dropped onto alien worlds and immediately started cataloging everything they could get their hands on. It had worked well for the past 50 years of galactic expansion, but today felt different. She moved carefully through the alien landscape, her boots crunching softly on the crystalline ground cover. The planet's dual suns created an otherworldly lighting that made everything look like it was glowing from within. Beautiful but dangerous. Elena had learned not to trust beautiful things in space. The first shot came from nowhere. A superheated plasma bolt seared past her head, so close she could smell the ozone it left behind. Elena threw herself behind a cluster of blue-tinted rocks, her heart hammering against her ribs. Her military training kicked in immediately, mind racing through threat assessment protocols. "Contact! Contact! Taking fire from unknown position!" She barked into her comm, but only static answered back. The communication array must have been the first target. Another bolt struck the rock formation, sending chips of alien stone flying. Elena kept her head down and tried to pinpoint the shooter's location. The plasma signatures were coming from the ridge line about 800 meters northeast. Definitely not human weapons. The energy patterns were all wrong. Too focused and too hot. She pulled out her field scanner and ran a quick sweep of the area. The readings made her blood run cold. 7 distinct heat signatures were positioned along the ridge, all armed with long-range energy weapons. They had her completely surrounded and pinned down. Elena had been in tough situations before. She'd fought pirates in the asteroid belts of Tau Ceti and survived the siege of New Barcelona. But this was different. These weren't random raiders or desperate colonists. This was a coordinated ambush by something that knew exactly what it was doing. The shooting stopped suddenly. Elena waited, counting her heartbeats. 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, nothing. "Why aren't they finishing me off?" she muttered to herself. That's when she heard it. A sound that made her skin crawl. It was almost like laughter, but wrong somehow. Too many tones, too many harmonics, definitely not human. A new voice crackled through her comm system, speaking in broken but understandable English. "Human soldier, we know you are there. We know you are alone." Elena's grip tightened on her rifle. Someone had hacked her comm system. "We have studied your kind for many cycles," the alien voice continued. "You are weak, soft, easily broken. We will hunt you now, as sport. Run, little human. Make it interesting." The communication cut off, leaving Elena alone with the whisper of alien wind through the crystal formations. She understood now. This wasn't a military ambush or a territorial dispute. This was a hunt. She was the prey. Elena checked her equipment. Standard issue plasma rifle with 2 spare power cells, combat knife, emergency medical kit, field scanner, water for maybe 6 hours. Not exactly a survival loadout for extended combat against unknown alien hunters. But Elena Vasquez hadn't survived 8 years in the Colonial Marines. By giving up when things looked impossible, she'd earned her sergeant's stripes by being stubborn, creative, and absolutely refusing to die when people expected her to. "All right, you alien bastards," she whispered to herself. "You want to hunt a human? Let me show you why that's a really bad idea. She started moving, staying low and using the natural rock formations for cover. The key was to keep mobile and try to figure out what she was dealing with. Elena had always been good at reading terrain and understanding how to use it to her advantage. The alien hunters had made their first mistake by talking to her. They'd given away the fact that they were cocky, overconfident. They thought they knew everything about humans, but Elena was betting they'd only studied civilian populations or maybe regular military encounters. They probably had never dealt with someone who'd grown up hunting in the backwoods of Montana before joining the Marines. As she moved, Elena started noticing things. Scorch marks on certain rocks that were too precise to be natural, disturbed ground where something heavy had been positioned, small scratches in the crystal formations that suggested movement patterns. These aliens had been setting up this ambush for a while, but they'd also left traces. Everything left traces if you knew how to look. Elena found a position with good cover and pulled out her field scanner again. This time she configured it for detailed geological analysis. The alien weapons left distinctive electromagnetic signatures when they fired. If she could map those signatures, she might be able to work backwards and figure out their exact positions. The scanner hummed quietly as it processed data. Elena kept one eye on the readout and one eye on the surrounding terrain. She was starting to get a picture of what she was up against. 7 shooters positioned in a rough circle around her initial location. They were using the high ground effectively and had overlapping fields of fire. Professional work. But the spacing between positions was too regular, too predictable. These hunters were used to easy prey. Elena smiled grimly. Time to show them that humans weren't as predictable as they thought. She began moving in a wide circle, staying below the ridgeline and using every piece of cover available. Her plan was simple in concept, but would require perfect execution. She needed to isolate the hunters and take them out one by one, using their own overconfidence against them. The first hunter position was near a cluster of tall crystal spires that created natural blind spots. Elena approached from the south, moving slowly and carefully. Her scanner showed the alien was still in position, probably watching her last known location. As she got closer, Elena started to make out details. The creature was tall and angular, with 4 arms that ended in delicate-looking hands. Its skin was a mottled green-brown that blended well with the local rock formations. The weapon it carried was sleek and organic-looking, like it had been grown rather than manufactured. Elena waited for the perfect moment, then made her move. She came up behind the alien hunter like a ghost, her combat knife finding the gap between what looked like natural armor plates. The creature made a surprised whistling sound and collapsed without firing a shot. 1 down, 6 to go. Elena quickly searched the body and found several interesting items. The weapon was biometrically locked and wouldn't function for her, but there was a small communication device that might be useful. She also found what looked like a tactical display showing the positions of the other hunters. "Thank you for the intelligence," she whispered. Now she knew exactly where the others were, and she had a communication device that might let her listen in on their coordination. This hunt was about to become much more interesting. Elena started moving toward the second position, her mind already working through the tactical possibilities. These aliens thought they were the predators, but they were about to learn an important lesson about humans. When humans were cornered, when they were outnumbered and outgunned, that's when they became most dangerous. Elena was about to remind the galaxy why humanity had spread across so many star systems in such a short time. It wasn't because they were the strongest or the smartest species. It was because they absolutely refused to give up, even when giving up was the logical thing to do. The hunt was just getting started. Elena crouched behind a formation of twisted metal trees, studying the tactical display she'd taken from the first hunter. The alien technology was surprisingly intuitive, showing her the positions of the remaining 6 hunters in real time. They were starting to move now, probably wondering why their companion had gone silent. The communication device in her other hand crackled with alien voices speaking in their native language. Elena couldn't understand the words, but the tone was becoming increasingly agitated. Good. Confusion was her ally now. She watched as two of the heat signatures on the display began converging on her first kill site. They were moving in a coordinated pattern that suggested military training, but there was something off about their approach. They moved too confidently, without the careful paranoia that kept soldiers alive in hostile territory. Elena smiled. These hunters were used to prey that ran away, not prey that fought back intelligently. She began moving toward the third hunter position, taking a route that would keep her hidden from the two investigating the first site. The alien she was stalking was positioned on a rocky outcrop that provided excellent overwatch of the surrounding area. Getting close would be challenging, but Elena had noticed something interesting on the tactical display. This hunter was isolated from the others, positioned to cover an escape route that led back toward human territory. It was a smart tactical placement, but it also meant the alien was alone and focused on watching for movement in the wrong direction. Elena approached from directly below the outcrop, using the blind spot created by the overhang. The climb was treacherous, but her enhanced combat armor provided enough grip assistance to make it manageable. She moved slowly, testing each handhold and making sure she didn't dislodge any loose rocks. As she climbed, Elena could hear the alien hunter above her making small movements. The creature was definitely focused on something in the distance, probably watching for her to break cover and run for human territory. Elena reached the top of the outcrop and peered carefully over the edge. The second hunter was even larger than the first, with additional armor plating and what looked like cybernetic enhancements along its arms. This one was a veteran, probably the pack leader or at least a senior member. The alien's weapon was also more sophisticated, with multiple targeting systems and what appeared to be variable ammunition types. Elena would need to be very careful with this one. She waited for the right moment, watching the alien's movement patterns. Every 30 seconds, the creature would turn its head to scan a different section of the terrain. Elena timed her approach to coincide with one of these turns. The combat knife slid between armor plates just as smoothly as before, but this alien was tougher. It let out a piercing shriek before collapsing, and Elena knew the sound would carry to the other hunters. The communication device immediately erupted with excited alien chatter. Elena didn't need to understand the language to know they were angry and possibly starting to panic. Two of their members had been eliminated by what they thought was helpless prey. Elena quickly searched this hunter and found more useful equipment. This one carried what appeared to be some kind of personal shield generator and a set of vision enhancement devices. She strapped on the shield generator and clipped the vision enhancers to her helmet. The tactical display showed the remaining 4 hunters were now moving in her general direction, but they were being much more cautious. Their overconfidence was finally starting to crack. Elena decided it was time to change tactics. Instead of continuing to hunt individual targets, she would let them come to her and set up an ambush of her own. She found a position in a narrow canyon that offered multiple escape routes but forced anyone approaching to expose themselves. Elena set up the stolen alien communication device to broadcast on their frequency and began making noise. "Looking for me?" she said into the device, speaking in English. She knew they could understand her language. The response came back immediately, this time in much better English than before. "You killed Huntmaster Kretak and Scout Velnon. This is not possible. Humans do not have these capabilities." "Congratulations," Elena replied. "You just learned something new about humans. We're full of surprises. We have studied your military tactics. We have observed your combat capabilities. You should not be able to do this." Elena laughed, genuinely amused. "You studied our military tactics? Let me guess. You watched some training videos or observed some peacekeeping operations. Maybe you analyzed some old battle reports from our expansion wars. Silence on the communication channel. Here's the thing about humans you clearly didn't understand, Elena continued. All those tactics and procedures you studied, those are just the baseline. When we're really in trouble, when we're outnumbered and outgunned and probably going to die anyway, that's when we stop following the rule book and start improvising. You cannot defeat us all. We are superior hunters. Are you? Elena asked. Because from where I'm sitting, you look like a bunch of amateurs who bit off more than they could chew. She could see movement on her tactical display now. 3 of the remaining hunters were approaching her position, moving in a coordinated sweep pattern. The 4th was hanging back, probably covering their retreat route. Elena adjusted the settings on her stolen shield generator and made final preparations for the ambush. She'd positioned herself so that the approaching aliens would have to cross an open area to reach her, and the narrow canyon would limit their ability to surround her. The first alien appeared at the canyon mouth, moving with much more caution than Elena had seen before. This one was smaller than the others, but carried more sophisticated equipment. Definitely a scout or specialist of some kind. Elena let it advance into the canyon, waiting for the others to follow. Her plan required all 3 to commit to the approach before she could act. The second alien appeared, this one heavily armored and carrying what looked like a support weapon. The third followed closely behind, scanning the canyon walls for threats. Elena activated the alien shield generator just as she opened fire with her plasma rifle. The shield absorbed the return fire while her shots found their targets with deadly precision. The confined space of the canyon worked exactly as she'd hoped, preventing the aliens from spreading out and using their superior numbers effectively. The firefight lasted less than 30 seconds. When the plasma bolts stopped flying, 3 more alien hunters lay dead in the canyon. Elena checked her tactical display, 1 hunter remaining, and it was already moving away from her position at maximum speed. "Where are you going?" she called into the communication device. "I thought this was a hunt." No response came back, but Elena could track the fleeing alien on her display. It was heading for what looked like a landing site about 2 kilometers away, probably trying to reach its ship and escape. Elena couldn't let that happen. If this hunter escaped and reported back to its people, they would know that humans were more dangerous than they'd assumed. That knowledge could lead to more serious military action instead of these hunting expeditions. She started running, using the alien vision enhancers to navigate the rough terrain at high speed. The enhanced optics revealed details in the landscape that would have been invisible to normal human vision, allowing her to take shortcuts and maintain pursuit. The fleeing alien was fast, but it was also panicked. Elena could see on the tactical display that it was taking a direct route to the landing site instead of using evasive maneuvers. Fear was making it predictable. As Elena ran, she thought about what this encounter meant for humanity's expansion into this sector of space. These aliens were clearly technologically advanced and had been observing human activities for some time. They knew about human military capabilities, but had fundamentally misunderstood what made humans dangerous. They'd studied the wrong things. They'd focused on equipment and tactics instead of psychology and adaptability. They'd assumed that humans were just another species that could be cataloged and understood through observation. Elena reached the top of a ridge and could see the alien landing site below. The ship was sleek and organic-looking, like most of the alien technology she'd encountered. The surviving hunter was almost to the boarding ramp. Elena raised her plasma rifle and took careful aim. At this range, with these conditions, she had 1 shot to end this hunt permanently. The plasma bolt struck the alien center mass just as it reached its ship. The creature collapsed on the boarding ramp, and Elena could see from the tactical display that its life signs were fading rapidly. She started down toward the landing site, keeping her weapon ready in case there were more aliens aboard the ship. The tactical display showed no additional life signs, but Elena had learned not to trust alien technology completely. As she approached the ship, Elena began to understand the full scope of what had happened here. This wasn't just a random hunting expedition. The ship's design and the sophisticated equipment the aliens had carried suggested this was a professional operation, possibly military or intelligence-related. Elena realized she needed to get this information back to Human Command as quickly as possible. This first contact with a hostile alien species could change everything about humanity's expansion into space. But first, she had a ship to investigate and potentially a very interesting conversation to have with whoever had sent these hunters in the first place. Elena approached the alien ship with her weapon raised, every sense alert for threats. The vessel was larger up close than it had appeared from the ridge, roughly the size of a human dropship, but with a completely different design philosophy. Where human ships were angular and functional, this craft flowed like it had been carved from a single piece of living wood. The boarding ramp was still extended, and Elena could see into the dimly lit interior. Bioluminescent panels provided a soft blue-green glow that was easy on the eyes, but created deep shadows that could hide anything. Elena stepped carefully over the body of the last hunter and entered the ship. The interior was even stranger than the outside, with walls that seemed to pulse gently and floors that felt organic under her boots. Everything was sized for beings taller than humans, forcing Elena to stretch to reach some of the control surfaces. She found what appeared to be the ship's communication center and began recording everything she could with her suit's documentation systems. The alien text was completely unreadable, but the visual layout suggested this was definitely a military or intelligence vessel. There were too many monitoring stations and tactical displays for this to be a simple hunting party. Elena's field scanner detected multiple data storage devices throughout the ship. She began downloading what she could, hoping that human cryptographers would eventually be able to decode the information. Every piece of intelligence about these aliens could be crucial for future encounters. As she worked, Elena discovered something that made her blood run cold. One of the displays showed what appeared to be surveillance footage of human colonies. Not just her current location, but multiple worlds across human space. The timestamps suggested this surveillance had been ongoing for months, possibly years. These aliens hadn't just stumbled across humanity. They'd been studying human expansion systematically, probably preparing for something much larger than hunting expeditions. Elena found the ship's communication logs and activated the emergency transmission system built into her combat armor. She needed to get this information to Colonial Command immediately, even if it meant revealing her position to any other alien forces in the area. "This is Sergeant Elena Vasquez, Colonial Marines, transmitting Priority Alpha intelligence," she began. "I have eliminated 7 alien hostiles and recovered significant intelligence regarding systematic surveillance of human space." The transmission would take several hours to reach the nearest human relay station, but at least the information would get through eventually. Elena continued her investigation of the alien ship while the message transmitted. In what appeared to be the captain's quarters, Elena found detailed files on human military personnel. Her own photograph and service record were among them, along with those of hundreds of other Marines, Navy personnel, and civilian leaders. The aliens had been gathering intelligence on specific individuals, not just general military capabilities. Elena realized she needed to understand more about who these aliens were and what they were planning. She found what looked like the ship's main computer core and began trying to access its data files. The alien computer system was surprisingly responsive to her touch, as if it had been designed to interface with multiple species. After several minutes of experimentation, Elena managed to activate what appeared to be a historical database. The images that appeared on the screen told a story that made Elena's tactical situation suddenly seem much more significant. These aliens, who called themselves the Cathara, were part of a galactic confederation that had been monitoring younger species for centuries. When a species showed signs of rapid expansion and technological development, the Kithara would conduct evaluation hunts to assess their military capabilities. According to the database, species that performed poorly in these hunts were marked for eventual subjugation or elimination. Species that showed exceptional combat effectiveness were offered membership in the Confederation as junior partners. Elena scrolled through records of dozens of other species that had undergone similar evaluations. Most had failed the test and were no longer independently spacefaring. A few had passed and joined the Confederation, but always in subordinate roles. The implications were staggering. Humanity was being tested, and Elena's performance in this hunt would help determine the future of human independence in the galaxy. She downloaded everything she could from the database and began preparing for what she knew would be a much larger conflict. The Kithara would eventually send more forces to investigate the loss of this hunting party, and Elena needed to be ready. Elena found the ship's weapons locker and was pleased to discover that the alien weapons could be reconfigured for human use. The technology was more advanced than anything in the human arsenal, and she would need every advantage she could get. As she familiarized herself with the alien equipment, Elena's communication system received an incoming transmission. The signal was coming from deep space, and the encryption patterns matched those she'd found in the ship's database. Elena activated the alien communication system and listened as a new voice spoke in the Kithara language. She couldn't understand the words, but the tone suggested urgency and concern. The aliens were trying to contact their missing hunting party. Elena made a decision that would have significant consequences for human-alien relations. She activated the translation protocols she'd found in the ship's computer and responded to the incoming call. "This is the human who eliminated your hunting party," she said, knowing the ship's translator would convert her words into the Kithara language. The silence that followed lasted nearly 30 seconds. When the alien voice returned, it was speaking in English. "This is impossible. No single human should have been able to defeat 7 Kithara hunters." "And yet here we are," Elena replied. "Your hunters underestimated their prey." "What are your demands, human?" Elena smiled grimly. They thought this was a hostage situation or a negotiation. They still didn't understand what they were dealing with. "I don't have demands," Elena said. "I have a message. Humanity is not some primitive species you can hunt for sport or evaluate for subjugation. We are a spacefaring civilization with our own agenda, and we will not be anyone's junior partners." "You speak for your entire species?" "No," Elena admitted. "But I speak for the part of humanity that you need to worry about. The part that doesn't surrender when things look impossible. The part that fights back even when outnumbered and outgunned." Elena could hear multiple alien voices in the background, clearly debating what her words meant for their evaluation of humanity. "Your hunters failed their mission," Elena continued. "Not because they were unlucky or incompetent, but because they fundamentally misunderstood what makes humans dangerous. You studied our military tactics and our technology, but you never understood our psychology. Explain." "Humans don't just fight to win," Elena said. "We fight to survive, and there's a difference. When survival is at stake, we stop following rules and start adapting. Your hunters expected predictable behavior based on your observations, but adaptation and unpredictability are what define humanity." Elena paused, looking around the alien ship that she had effectively captured single-handedly. "Here's what's going to happen," she continued. "I'm going to take this ship back to human space. Your technology, your databases, your intelligence files, everything. My people will study it the same way you studied us. Except we'll do it better because we understand that knowledge is only useful if you know how to adapt it to new situations. This act of aggression will have consequences." "Good," Elena replied, "because peaceful contact obviously wasn't working out. At least now both our species know where we stand." Elena began the process of activating the alien ship's flight systems. The controls were intuitive enough that she was confident she could pilot it back to human space, and the intelligence value of the intact vessel would be enormous. As the ship lifted off from the planet's surface, Elena opened one final communication channel to the Cathara vessel that was undoubtedly monitoring her departure. "If your people want to continue this evaluation," she said, "they're welcome to try. But next time, don't send hunters. Send warriors. You're going to need them." Elena cut the communication and set course for the nearest human naval base. Behind her, she left 7 dead alien hunters and a very different future for humanity's place in the galaxy. The Cathara had intended to test human combat capabilities through a controlled hunt. Instead, they had learned that humans were not a species that accepted tests from anyone. Elena's victory would send a message across the galaxy that humanity was not looking for permission to expand into space. They were taking their place among the stars, whether other species liked it or not. Elena settled into the pilot's seat of her captured alien vessel and smiled. She had survived the hunt, but more importantly, she had turned the tables entirely. The Cathara had come to evaluate humanity's worthiness for independence. Instead, humanity would now be evaluating the Cathara's worthiness to coexist peacefully with a species that refused to be anyone's prey. The real test was just beginning.